Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to Reddit Aliens. I'm John, and as always, thank you so much for being here. Good topic, let's do it. What strange experience had you believing in strange creatures or the paranormal or glitch in the Matrix? Please remember to like, share, and subscribe.
I had a few shared experiences and many experiences while alone. Once my friend and I were talking in the doorway to her room late at night. We looked down the hall at the same time, and we both saw a boy standing in his pajamas in the doorway of her nephew's room. We did the whole thing, say what you saw on 3 things, to verify what we saw. I went down the hall to see if her nephew was up, but he was fast asleep and in different pajamas. Once when I was a kid, I woke up around 3 a.m. and smelled food being cooked. I could hear quiet ambient noises and voices. I went into the living room and saw nothing there. No one was awake. My stepmom said the same thing had happened to her. We both said it smelled like a campfire with meat and bread cooking. The house was built on a hill where a small 100-plus Civil War battle took place. We all saw out-of-place things there, like the top of my sister's head peeking out of the arm of the couch, but when we got closer, there was no one there. I've been an atheist the majority of my life, but 2 events in my life make me question it. My grandpa was sick for 3 years with a rare blood disease. He decided to go off medication and was told he had a week left to live. My family stayed at their house with him until he passed. My grandmother kept an oil candle next to a picture of Mary in the bathroom next to where my grandpa lay. This flame never burned out. It was always warm in Australia, and the windows were never open. My grandpa passed away surrounded by his family. Maybe 10 minutes after my mom, aunts, and grandma went into the bathroom to wash their faces, the candle burnt out. Everyone was freaking out at the same time, but over the years I always remained skeptical and thought it was a big coincidence, or that it had burned out before he passed. My last one really F's with me. My dad's aunt, who I wasn't close to at all, was in the hospital preparing to pass from old age. We knew she would pass within a week. One night I suddenly woke up in shock after seeing a flash of bright light. I thought nothing of it and went back to sleep. The next day my mom got a call from my uncle and was told that Dad's aunt had passed away in her sleep. So this was about 10 years ago. I was over at my aunt's house watching some TV and talking with my uncle about how me, my parents, and my sisters were going to Gettysburg. My uncle knows I'm into the paranormal and sci-fi stuff, and we were talking about how we were going to do a tour of the battlefield. I told him that I was going to take tons of pictures in hopes of catching something. He proceeded to ask me something along the lines of, "Have you ever had a paranormal experience?" I remember saying something like, "No, but I'd really like to see a ghost." And we continue on with our conversation about Gettysburg and its hauntings. Well, about 5 to 8 minutes after that, the radio in the room turns on full blast. The volume is extremely high, music blaring. We all looked at each other confused, and my uncle had trouble finding the remote to turn it off. He eventually found it in a drawer in the coffee table. My aunt was in the next room. She had come in after the radio came blaring on and said, "Well, I guess Grandma wanted to be your first experience." My grandma died when I was 3 in that house, in the room my aunt was in, which was probably 20 feet from where I was sitting. Now, I'm not sure if I can definitely say it was paranormal, but I would like to think it was my grandma somehow reaching out to me. I started having out-of-body experiences when I hit puberty around 14. I started with having short, lucid dreams, which then one day progressed to me waking up vibrating like crazy. I tried to turn around in bed, but my spirit body just popped out of my normal one. I could see my physical body lying in bed while the spirit was free to walk around. The first time it happened, I was so goddamn exhilarated. It was such a feeling and mind-blowing experience that I did a front flip off the front post of my bed. After that, I would start to have them about once a week of varying lengths and clarity, and finally, they stopped when I entered the army. It is just in the past 2 years, I'm 33 now, that they've started coming back naturally. I don't know if it's some sort of hallucination or whatever, but they are definitely different from lucid dreams. And the things I saw and experienced during these events really led me to believe that there's some form of soul or perpetual energy that exists outside the body.
That sounds really wild. I don't think I've ever heard of things like that before. And then the fact that it stopped when you were in the military and then came back, it's interesting.
Me and 2 friends were in the yellow room of the Guthrie Theater 10 minutes before closing. There was this strange Fu Manchu man in a yellow room as well. He pointed me and my friends toward this glowing red orb in the distance. Then he said it was the strangest thing he'd ever seen in his life. After that, he pretty much disappeared, and my friends wanted to leave as well. I convinced them to stay, and that he pretty much disappeared. I convinced them to stay and see if this red orb did anything. It didn't move at all. Instead, after looking at it for a couple of minutes, 3 yellow orbs of light came out from the west and started to do this crazy dance where they pretty much just chased each other around in a circle. Then, as if it couldn't get any weirder, they formed a perfect triangle in the sky and held it just for a moment. After that, they kept doing their weird dance and would go in and out of existence until finally all 3 disappeared. As soon as they disappeared, a lady working there, who had talked to us early and encouraged us to check the place out, came and told us we had to leave. We were really freaked out, but also very excited. I told her we just saw aliens, and she seemed amused. As we were driving home, I couldn't stop thinking about that mysterious Fu Manchu man. It was like he was waiting for us up there. Crazy effing shit, man. Probably kind of lame in comparison to everyone else, but in 2014 my grandpa was struggling with his fight with cancer. He was the patriarch of our family, so it was really difficult to see this once strong man wither away to nothing but skin and bones. Around this time, I was also struggling with a mystery illness and coming to terms with mental abuse and issues in my marriage. On top of that, I was also without a job, so that just made the situation all the more stressful. At the time, I was interviewing, and I was coming back from an interview I just tanked. I was just walking to my car from the interview spot in downtown Detroit, having an existential crisis, when I noticed this lady that I'd never seen before in my life walking towards me. She was smiling brightly at me. When she got closer to me, she took my hand and said, "It'll be all right." I nodded matter-of-factly and then continued walking to her destination. I think that moment really restored my faith and belief in God. When I was 7, I believe I was abducted. I was playing hide and seek with maybe 10 other kids from my church on an army base in Kornwestheim, Germany. In the large common grounds, like a park between housing units, I hid on the far side of the field, laying down on the opposite bench of a cement picnic table. I could see in between the tables and the other bench the other kids running, and no one seemed to see me. It was an awesome hiding place, and I was proud of it. The next thing I know, I look up and see a ring of 6 lights in the sky overhead. And when I realized that it was weird, not normal, all the points shot together like they shot straight up in the sky. I got up and ran back across the field, realizing that all the other kids were gone. I asked my brother if we were going to play hide and seek, and he just gave me this look like I was weird and didn't say anything. It wasn't until almost 30 years later that I realized what all that meant. I had told others all of the above, but it didn't seem important how much later in the evening it was in that instance. 1 second later, it was sunset. The next day, there were stars in the sky. They had already played, which explained my brother's response. I have a few as well. When I was 8 or 9 years old, my parents were stationed at the Buckeye Air Base in Aurora, Colorado. We lived off base, but not very far off base. There was a large field between us and it. One night, it was incredibly dark and stormy, raining sideways. lightning creeping across the valley, thunderous booms every 5 seconds, the whole 9 yards. And I'm eating dinner with my mom. Dad was at work, and I have a clear view of the field. All of a sudden, I see this bright light flash above it. The light starts changing colors and is spinning in place. It stays there for a solid 4 minutes. I asked my mom what it was, and she calmly explained that it was fireworks. At the time, I remember being skeptical because I'd never seen any fireworks like that, but my mom said it, so it must be true. Now, as an adult, knowing she also sworn to secrecy for many, many years on certain projects that happened there, I find it even more interesting and unbelievable. As a kid, I would have toys I'd lost on road trips pop into existence in front of me randomly. Many ghost encounters throughout my life, chairs moving, doors opening and closing, objects being thrown across the room, banging on the walls, footsteps when nobody was there, voices, the classics of ghost encounters. Within the last year, I had a walk-in experience. On Samhain nonetheless, I felt 2 completing spirits enter me. One of a demon and one of a spirit or avatar of a virtue, if you believe in that. The spirit won, thankfully. I spent a good amount of time studying witchcraft and chaos magic, so I was able to guide them to victory through certain rituals. Finally, I was born dead for 2 minutes officially. The umbilical cord wrapped around my neck twice and suffocated me to death. After an intense C-section and resuscitation, they were able to revive me. The night prior, my mom, who is fairly religious, had a dream where Jesus, according to her, a ball of light she sensed was Jesus, visited her and told her I would be born with complications, and that if she didn't go see help soon, I would be gone forever. His parting words to her were, "Don't worry, everything will work itself out." She woke up immediately, felt something was wrong, and rushed to the hospital. I don't believe in Jesus' words, but I do believe in a higher level of being, one that transcends time and space, even dimensions. Nothing too crazy, but definitely has helped solidify my beliefs in this sort of stuff. Nothing big, but I had gotten into a fight with my mother at the time and stormed out of her room crying, which immediately connected to the living room. I was crying quietly in the living room by myself, I might add, because my brother was asleep in his room as he worked the next day. As I'm crying, I hear a woman's voice right in my ear say, "I'm watching you." I stopped crying and looked around, half-heartedly expecting my mom to be standing in the doorway, but she wasn't. I ran back to my mom and told her what had happened, but she brushed it off, and if I bring it up, she blames it on the video games I play. Recently, my friend and I were coming back from a weekend beach trip to North Carolina. On our way back, we passed this psychic reading place out in the middle of nowhere. I joked with her and told her we should turn around and go get a reading. She, being adventurous, pulled a U-turn, and we pulled in the driveway. Now this house looked like no one lived there, and she kept asking me what kind of vibes I was getting from it. We were both still trying to figure out if we wanted to go in, and when she said that, the look of horror on my face changed her mind instantly. Where we were standing, she had her back to the neighbor's driveway, but I was facing it. When I looked over at the very top of the driveway, there was this big dead black cat just laying there. We hurried and got in the car and slowed down when we drove by it. It was strange the way it was lying there. It hasn't been hit by a car, but it was just very off-putting. We nodded out of there. I'm still not sure what to think of it, as it could have been a coincidence, but later when we stopped for food, the psychic number on the outside of the house she dialed, it was a call to make an appointment kind of deal, made a really weird ring, and it just stopped. She blocked the number. I only believe in aliens because there's no way Earth is the only planet with advanced life forms in this massive, largely unexplored universe. All the other stuff you listed I don't believe in. About aliens, though, I don't know if I believe they've visited Earth or not. There's a lot of credible stories from credible people, sometimes a whole group, or they have proof an event occurred, but There's also a lot of debunked alien stuff. But then again, multiple governments, mostly the US and Australia, have had a lot of alien speculation, and either JFK or Bill Clinton wanted to talk about aliens. When I was a little girl, about 3 years old, I was at my grandparents' apartment. It was the middle of the night, and I got up to go to the bathroom and saw an old lady in the mirror that was at the end of the hallway. I knew it wasn't my grandmother because I slept in my grandmother's bed, and she was sound asleep when I got up. Also, that ghost looked nothing like my grandma. Needless to say, I started crying and woke up my grandparents. When I looked up, she was gone. A lot of other things happened at that apartment, but this was the one that affected me the most.